Hello, welcome back to my channel. We're going to continue reading The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. Thank you guys for tuning in and check out this beautiful background behind me. It's an enchanted forest. There used to be a gigantic tree like right here. Used to be pretty high, like 50, 100 feet tall. I climbed it like halfway and I used to chill up there and bird watch. But this is a beautiful park. So let's get going. And thank you guys for all the subscribers, all the viewers, the non-subscribers. Thank you guys. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for the thumbs down. It shows makes things a little bit better. So there's a lot of interesting things going on with CRISPR technologies and okay. Let me take that back. Let me just start. Okay. These are two of their daughters. Their skulls are enormous and they have high waist, skinny calves, and huge ears. This is another one of the daughters. I feel certain that it is exactly what she looked like. If you could see that head from the back, you would see its size. It was big. It's hard to see the size of these ears until you actually get right next to it. I'm gonna show you real quick, but I think there's like copyright things. But these are like the elongated skulls, that if you are familiar with Paracas skulls, they're elongated skulls that they found way down there in Peru. But could they all be related? Could you know the ancient people all have elongated skulls, different type of humanoids? I think so, because I think they did some DNA tests on the Paracas skulls, and I think they don't share a DNA, um, common ancestry. Fact check me if I'm wrong. I'll probably have to look that up. Okay. Figure 5 to 16 is another daughter, younger than the last one. Little neck, huge skull, extending back. This is an image of one of the daughters as a teenager. Figure 5 to 17. This is another figure 5 to 18. You can see how big the head is relative to the body. I'm going to show you real quick again. It's very interesting. So, here we go. This is a baby. Again, the skull goes way up and around. The ears are about half the size of the head. Physiologically, these bodies are vastly different from human bodies. There are all kinds of differences, brain differences, and other unusual things. For example, they have two hearts. The only reason we have one heart is because we have one sun, but these are Syrian beings actually. They were members of the 32 beings who were sitting around the original flame, and their bodies are from the star Sirius. The Sirian star system has two stars, Sirius A and Sirius B. It's a binary system, as are a vast majority of the star systems. And in those systems, life forms have two hearts. If there's only one sun, life forms have one heart. If there are more stars than two in the system, there will still be two hearts. King Tut and other elongated skulls. This is King Tut, figure 5 to 20, who took over directly after Akhenaten was disposed of. King Tut was only 18 years old when he became king. Nobody knows for certain where he came from. The slide says he was a son-in-law of Nefertiti and Akhenaten, married to their daughter. He was obviously part of this lineage, though his skull doesn't appear as big, but he does have the big ears. According to Off, King Tut was allowed to take over for only 1 year. He ruled during the transition between Akhenaten and the next phase. King Tut was in telepathic communication with Nefertiti while she ran the country through him. From that 1 year, she was in hiding. This is the museum at Lima, Peru. Figure 5 to 21. I just want to note that they also have some pretty amazing skulls there. Peru is another one of the places Dolph went to. They found these skulls, figure 5 to 22, in Peru, just like those in Egypt. These large skulls are found in 3 areas of the world, in and around Egypt, Peru, and Tibet. Nowhere else, at least that I know of. Remember, these are the primary areas where these beings went. This was one of my teachers who is now dead. His name was Kalu Rinpoche, a Tibetan Lama. I've had many teachers, but I feel especially close to this one. I really love him a lot. Notice the shape of his skull? Wow, that's a real person. He looks kind of alien. But I was just seeing in the this channel that I follow, they were saying that people with large heads and whatnot and kind of big eyes could be have DNA of alien DNA in them. They're saying memory, the key to immortality. You might wonder if Akhenaten and others were immortal. Then why are they dead? I'll give you the definition of immortality from a Melchizdek point of view, which hopefully will help. Somebody else may have a different definition, but this is what we feel. Immortality has nothing to do with living in the same body forever. You're going to live forever anyways. You have always been alive, and you always will be, but you might not be conscious during all that time. The definition from our point of view has to be with memory. When you become immortal, you reach the point where your memory remains intact from then on. In other words, your conscience from then on, with no unconsciousness coming in. It means you stay in the body as long as you want to, and when you want to leave it, you leave. To have to stay in a single body forever would be a jail or a trap, because it means you couldn't leave. There might be a reason for leaving that body, and you will eventually find that you want to go beyond wherever you are. This is the definition of eternal life. Simply put, you have continuous, unbroken memory. Back now to what happened after Akhenaten was dethroned. In order to let things get back to the old ways, which they wanted to do, the country went into a transitional state. The people who became king and queen directly after him are almost comical. They let A and Tia take over the country. We have a long time lag here. Then they became king and queen. It's written right in the records. They took over for around 30 years, and then they gave it to Seti the First, who became the first king of the 19th dynasty. He immediately changed everything back to the old way, erased everything, and called Akhenaten the same name they called Jesus, the criminal. He called him the worst king who ever lived because of his teaching that there was only one God. What really happened to Akhenaten? Most of Egypt hated Akhenaten except for a small group. The priesthood hated him most of all because Egyptian religious beliefs were centered on the priests. They controlled the people, their way of life, and the economy. They became rich and were more powerful than anybody else. Then Akhenaten came along and said, "You don't need priests. God is within you." There is only one God, and you can access God from within your own self. The priests reacted to protect themselves and their vested interests. Also, Egypt had the most powerful military in the world, and when Akhenaten became pharaoh, they were chomping at the bit, ready to go out and take over the world. Akhenaten said no. He was a complete pacifist and said, "Come back onto our soil. Do not attack anyone unless you're at attack." He made the military come back and sit by idly, and they didn't like that. So he had not only the priesthood, but the military against him. On top of that, the people themselves were into their little religious, and they loved worshiping their little gods. This wouldn't ultimately this wouldn't ultimately do them any good. It wouldn't get them where they needed to go, according to the DNA plan of the universe, which was back home to God, to the one God. But nevertheless, they were really into what they were doing. When the people were forcefully told that they could no longer do certain religious acts, this caused great animosity towards Akhenaten. It would be like our president saying, "Okay, there are no more religions in the United States. There's just a president's religion." And if the president brought all the military back onto American soil with an isolationist point of view, he wouldn't be very popular. Neither was Akhenaten, but he knew what he had to do it to matter. He knew what he had to do it no matter what, even if it meant his own death. He had to do it to correct the pathway that our collective DNA had encoded into the reality. In addition, he needed to put into the Akashic records the memory of the scared purpose that Christ consciousness held. So what happened then? According to the accepted history, the priesthood and the military got together and gave Akhenaten a poison that killed him. According to Thoth, that is not exactly what happened, because they couldn't kill him. He could drink the poison, but it wouldn't hurt him. They did something much more exotic. Thoth says that the priesthood hired three black Nubian sorcerers who made a concoction similar to what is used in Haiti today to make someone look dead. It was given to Akhenaten at a public meeting called by the priesthood and the military. After Akhenaten drank the liquid, all life signs appeared to stop. As soon as the royal doctor pronounced him dead, they rushed him off to a special room where they had a sarcophagus waiting. They placed him in the sarcophagus, put on the lid with a magical seal, and buried it in a hidden place. Thoth said that Akhenaten had to wait inside the sarcophagus for almost 2,000 years before a piece of the seal broke away and the magic was broken. He then returned to the halls of Amenti. This was not a problem for Akhenaten. Thoth said that to an immortal being like Akhenaten, it was more like a nap. My question is, did he really allow this to happen to him? So, what do you guys think so far? I don't want to stop reading when I'm reading this, like all these things right here that are popping up. I just want to continue. I have like all these questions, and I'm trying to zip back to what I was going to say right here when I was reading. Um, oh, yeah, that God's inside of us. Um, the I am, Almighty God presence. Like the I am discourses when God says, "Who sent you? I am." So Akhenaten is saying this way before Jesus Christ came into the picture. This is very interesting. and now the things I know about the I am. I'm gonna put the link for the I am discourses of Saint Germain and uh, the Green Emerald tablets. Those are pretty good to study. So, oh yeah, the zombie. I think it's in Haiti. They call it the zombie like little thing where they put you to sleep and you kind of like it seems like you're dead, but you come back to life. So maybe there's like a liquid that's 100 times powerful that can put you to sleep for thousands of years, like in a hibernated state. So that would be like good for space travel if they could figure out the recipe, what that is. And maybe that's why they put them in the sarcophagus so they can not be tampered with. And maybe they were alive. Maybe these people are really alive and they're just in a hibernated state. And maybe they're in the halls of Amenti, and who knows? Unless the government cloned all these people, which I always thought as a kid, because they always said, oh, they live forever, so they preserve their bodies. So when I was a kid, I always pictured like, oh, well, they can clone them now. That could be like a way of living forever, because who's to say that they knew they would be brought back to life. So with all this cloning technology that's possible, these people, I wouldn't doubt if they're like clones, like they're like walking among us today, and all they would have to do is make a body for them, and then the soul would just have to jump in the body. Let's go on. What do y'all think? Do you think that's possible to hibernate for thousands of years? You know, I heard that's what they're gonna try to work on, hibernation pods. I think they're gonna use like the bear DNA or some kind of like hibernation mechanism they do. But there's many other hibernating species on this planet they could use. So they have a bunch of DNA they can use from a bunch of hibernating animals. So this is like the genetic era of genetic editing. So here we go. Akhenaten's Mystery School. What's important here is one fact. Akhenaten developed a mystery school. The school was called the Egyptian Mystery School of Akhenaten, the Law of One. As it turned out, he had only 17 and a half years to produce results. He brought students from the left eye of Horus, the feminine side, mystery school, which all talk about later graduates who were at least 45 years old, into the right eye of Horus Mystery School. The right eye information had never been taught before in Egypt. He taught them for 12 years, after which he had only 5.5 years to see if he could get them to live immortality. He did it, and he did it. He got about 300 people immortality. I believe they were all or almost all women. Someone once asked, why didn't Akhenaten work with the population in a different way so as to not get himself into such a dangerous situation? But can you think of a way to change a whole population in such a short time without causing strife? Could you do that in the United States right now? In 1 year, bring all religions into one. I don't think there is a way except to just do it, even if it means getting killed. Besides, the only thing we really need to do was simply live his life. The only thing we really needed to do was simply live his life. It would get into the Akashic records and be a memory that we all have in our DNA. One day alone would get it encoded. One day alone would get it encoded. Then afterwards, they could do whatever they wanted with him. He wasn't really concerned about it. He knew that the country the society and the customs would all go back to the old way. But he did have these 300 immortal people who would go on beyond him and Egypt. So, do you think those people exist, the 300 immortal women? And the encoded DNA of our ancient memories of our ancestors. Scientists just said that we uh, have access to memories of our ancestors passed down through us. Just like that movie, Assassin's Creed. All that stuff is like real, especially that movie. That's like a Illuminati movie in a game, mind control. So they're just slowly telling us through these movies, like and you just gotta have open mind. Now like this guy's talking about it 30 years ago, and maybe even way long time, and they're just confirming all this stuff. That's why this book is very important that you read it. And we're gonna go into volume 2, and that deals with like super meditation, astral projection, um, mind travel, remote viewing. um, a little later on, I'm planning on making a video about my remote view experiences with alien contact, how I made alien contact when I was a little kid, and what led up to me seeing the UFO and coming, basically getting on board the spaceship. And I will let you guys know. I kind of briefly said it, I think, and then I commented many times, but I'm gonna make a video and explain what led up to my abduction and me seeing the aliens and remote viewing and time travel in the mind. And you guys want to hear that? Let me know. Here we go. The essence, the Essene Brotherhood and Jesus, Mary and Joseph. After Akhenaten was gone, the 300 immortal Egyptians joined the Top Brotherhood and waited from roughly 1350 BC to about 500 BC, about 850 years or so. Then they migrated to a place called Masada, Israel, and formed the Essene Brotherhood. Even today, Masada is known as a capital of the Essene Brotherhood. These 300 people became the inner circle, and mostly ordinary people formed an outer circle, which became very large. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was one of the members of the inner circle of the Essene Brotherhood. She was immortal. Even before Jesus became immortal, Joseph came from the outer circle. This is according to Thoth. It's not written in the records. It was part of the Egyptian plan that the next step would be to bring in someone who would demonstrate exactly how to become immortal when starting as an ordinary human. But the experience into the Akashic records and make it real. Somebody had to do it. According to Thoth, Mary and Joseph came together and made it interdimensionally, which we'll talk about later, to create the body for Jesus, which would allow his consciousness to come in from a very, very high level. When Jesus first came in, he began life on earth as a human, as many of us. He was totally human, and through his own work, he transformed himself into the immortal state through resurrection, not through ascension, and put into the Akashic records the process of exactly how to do it. This is according to Thoth, and it was planned a long, long time before it ever took place. The two mystery schools and the 48 chromosome images. We're now changing direction again and beginning a new system of knowledge that will continue for a while until you see this symbol again a long way down the line. This was the symbol for the Egyptian mystery school of Akhenaten, the Law of One, figure 524. It's the right eye of Horus. The right eye is controlled by the left brain. It's male, knowledge, although the right eye sees directly to the right brain. This is not what the Egyptians were communicating. It is not the seeing, but rather the interpreting of the scene. Information that was important here. It is the left brain that makes this interpretation. Oh, sorry. It is the left brain that makes this interruption of what is seen. It controls the right side of the body, and vice versa. In the same manner, the left eye of Horus, controlled by the right brain, is female, knowledge, which was taught in the 12 primary Egyptian temples along the Nile. The 13th temple was the Great Pyramid itself. It took 12 years of initiation, spending a year, one cycle in each of these temples, learning all the feminine components of consciousness. But the male component, the right eye of Horus, was taught only once, and it was not written down anywhere. It was purely an oral tradition, though its primary components are etched on a single wall under the Great Pyramid that leads into the Hall of Records. As you go down that hall, you get almost to the bottom, and just before it makes a 90-degree turn high up on the wall, you see an image about 4 feet in diameter, which is the flower of life. Besides, it would see 47 other images, one after another, which are images of the chromosome of Christ consciousness, the level of consciousness we're moving into now. After these two levels are published, we may publish a book on these images. These images will be given throughout this book, mixed up in slightly different form. This is what the Great Pyramid is all about. Its primary purpose, beyond anything else, is to take someone from our level of consciousness into the next level. There are lots of other reasons why it's in existence, but ascension and resurrection are the absolute purpose. Genesis, the creation story, Egyptian and Christian versions. We're going to begin with a realization that the Christian and Egyptian understanding of reality are almost identical. The Christian understanding is derived from the Egyptian. Here are the first 3 sentences of the Christian Bible. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and the darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. To begin with, this statement that the earth was without form until it came out of the void, out of nothing, is exactly what the Egyptians believed. It's also what many other religions believe. Both Egyptian and Christian religions believe that all that's needed to start the process of creation is nothing and spirit. And when those two concepts are brought together, then all things can be created. They believe that creation begins by the movement of spirit. In the second sentence, it says, "The earth was without form and void," and that the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Then in the very next sentence, God says, "Let there be light." The movement happened first, then the light happened immediately after. According to the Egyptian belief, one tiny detail was left out of the current Christian Bibles. It isn't necessarily wrong in the older Bibles, though there are 900 versions of the Bible in the world, and in many of the older ones, The first sentence says, "In the beginning there were six." It starts out in other ways too. It's been changed many times over the years, and I just heard something too that they're gonna rewrite the whole Bible. AI is gonna rewrite it, or they're gonna rewrite it. So we need the original text. All this editing to what they're liking in the King James version too is a whole edit a Bible, and there's a lot of stuff that's being edited. Genes are being edited, you know, and this rice crop in Italy just got vandalized. The first genetic crop field, and the vandals out there, they don't want it because these are the beginnings of genetic food engineering. And what is it going to do to the human body? Like, are they making us all into cyborgs, synthetics? Like, I know I have a video I said kill all humans, but I just be joking around. It's just like I try to act like not act, but these people, these are how they think, they want to kill us, and they want to make us unhealthy, all the synthetic foods and colorings, and who knows what it's going to affect us in the long run. Well, they already know a lot of health problems are going down, should I say, but you guys got to read the papers. There's scientific papers out there that say all these things, and people are still eating them, and I don't get why are they still letting them put all these foods in the country. I mean, in the food, like the FDA, the FDA gets probably paid off by the food companies, just to pass the food, and they don't even expect the food. Like, who's auditing the auditors? Like, no one cares. It's like, oh, come up with this new food, genetic engineering, let's do it. But I digress. Let's go on. All these crazy things. Okay. Okay, the ancient Egyptians would say that the way our modern Bible begins creation is impossible, especially if you think about it from a physics point of view. Imagine a dark, infinite space that goes on forever and ever in all directions. There's nothing in it, just infinite space with nothing in it. Imagine yourself, not your body, but your consciousness being in the middle of that. You're just floating there without nothing. You can't really fall because where would you fall to? You wouldn't know if you're falling down or going up or off to the side. In fact, there's no way to experience any motion at all. The void. That's where we all came from. The void, the celestial. That's where we're gonna go. From a purely physics or mathematical point of view, motion itself or kinetic energy is absolutely impossible in a void. You can't even rotate because motion cannot become real until there's at least one other object in the space around you. There has to be something to move relative to. If you don't have something relative to move to, how would you know you're moving? I mean, if you went up 30 feet, how would you know that? There's no change. With no change, there's no movement. So the ancient Egyptians would say that before God moved upon the face of the waters, she had to first create something to move relative to. How God and the mystery schools did it. Now, think of yourself standing in a dark room near the door to a second room. You are ready to go into the second room, which is very, very dark. You can barely see the door leading into it. You go into the second room, close the door behind you, and it's pitch black. When you're faced with that situation, you have the ability to project a sensing beam from your third eye area, and you can also sense from your hands. You can actually sense from any chakra, but people usually do it from their third eye or their hands. You can project a beam of consciousness into the dark room for a certain distance. It might go only an inch, or maybe you can feel outward a foot or two, and you just know that nothing or something is in that space. Your conscience goes out this distance and then it stops. Your knowingness quits, and you don't know what's beyond that. You probably all know what I'm talking about, though a lot of us have allowed that sense to retreat because we rely on our eyes so much. But some people, especially the ancient Egyptians, were really good at this. They could go into a dark room and feel all around and know if anything was there, even though they couldn't see a thing with their eyes. There are blind people who can also demonstrate this ability. We actually have six of these sensing rays, not just one, but six. They all come from the center of our heads, the pineal gland. One ray comes out the front of our head at the third eye, and the other goes out the back. One goes out of the left, and the other out of the right side of our brains, and another goes straight up through the crown chakra, and the sixth straight down through our neck. The sixth direction. These are the same directions of the XYZ axis of geometry. The Egyptians believed that this innate aspect of consciousness is what allows creation to begin. They believed that if we didn't have this ability, creation would never have happened. In order to understand this process of creation on the deepest level, Egyptian students were told to imagine and enact the process we are about to go through. The following description is how they explain the practice and practice it in their mystery schools. The way they learn isn't the only way it could have been done, but this is how they were trained. The dark background in this picture represents the great void, and the little eye represents the Spirit of God. So here's the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God. Existing in the void, out in nothing. Imagine that you're that little spirit in the middle of the void. When you're in the great void, by the way, you will realize that you and God are one, that there is no difference at all. After hanging out in the void for a long time, you probably would get bored or curious or lonely, and you would want to try something new, to have some new adventure in your life. I'm having like deja vu right now. And maybe because I read this like years ago, but these are the symbols. The symbols of the one. Hopefully we don't get copyright. Here we go. This is a long one. It's a long one, buddy. Oh, I'm almost gonna finish it. I'll just finish it. What do y'all think? Interesting? First, create a space. So, spirit, the single eye shoots a beam of consciousness out into the void. It shoots this beam first to the front, then to the back, then to the left, then to the right, then straight up and straight down. Figure 526. Realize that whatever distance you project out front, you project the same distance out back. Also to the left, the right, and up and down. The consciousness beam projects the same distance in all six directions for any one individual, even though each one of us is different in how far we can project this beam. One of us might project an inch, another 2 feet, and another 50 feet. There is equality in all 6 directions. So spirit projects those beams outward in those 6 directions, defining space: north, south, east, west, up, and down. This might be why the American Indians and Native people all around the world find the 6 directions so important. Have you ever noticed this in their ceremonies? How important it is that they define the directions. It's also important in the Kabbalah, in some of the meditations they do. Next, enclose the space. In the mystery schools, after they projected these 6 beams in the 6 directions, the next thing they do is connect the end of these projections. This forms a diamond or square around them. Of course, when it's at the angle shown in this diagram, it looks like a rectangle, but you can see that it would actually be a square. So they make a little square around their point of consciousness. Then from the square, they send a beam up to the top, forming a pyramid around the base of the square. After they create the pyramid on top, they then send a beam down to the bottom point, forming a pyramid below. If you look at this in actual 3D space, the 2 back-to-back pyramids form an octahedron. Here's another rendition of the octahedron. Remember that this is just spirit. You don't have a body in the great void. You're just spirit. So you're in the great void, and you've created this field around you. Now, once you've defined the space by mapping out the octahedron, which two back to back, my reading's getting a little choppy. I apologize. I'm getting a little distracted. All these things in my mind, and I'm thinking, like, should we do it right now? Project. When we have time. And I think it's like when you're a spirit, yeah, you're like a little orb. Maybe that's, it's like the orbs that we see everywhere. And when I had my outer body experience, I felt like I was like a little glass, and a lot of people describe it like I felt like I was just looking in, and it was like tunnel vision, and I was just like looking like with a telescope or something. But I was moving around. Well, I didn't feel like I was moving, but I was just different scenes. Hey, and maybe it's like the eye. Yeah, it's like an eye looking through the orb. You know, interesting. Have you guys ever had an outer body experience? No, near death experience. Back to back pyramids. You have an object. Kinetic energy or movement is now possible. Something is now possible that was not possible before. Spirit can move outside the shape and move around it. It can go in any direction for miles and miles, then come back and have a center place for everything. The other thing spirit can do is remain stationary in the middle of the shape, letting the shape move inside. The shape cannot rotate or wobble or move in all possible ways. So relative movements are now possible. I want to finish, but my memory seems like it's going to run out in like 10 minutes, and I don't know if I'll finish this in 10 minutes. Or